Hello, my name is Mitch and I draw Blood Force, and we're back for more Uncanny X-Men. So we're back with more Claremont, we're back with more Jim Lee, we're back with more 1991 comics for Uncanny X-Men number 276. But if you enjoy the channel, if you want to support me as an artist, what you can do, in the description there's a link to my Patreon. And if you subscribe there, that'll give you access to all of these videos before they get uploaded to YouTube, usually a week or so in advance. That'll also give you access to all of the Blood Force pages, all the completed Blood Force comics, there's a couple now, and also any behind the scenes or exclusive stuff for the Patreon. Also, if you go over to my Instagram, commissions are now open. And just regarding these revisits, just remember, if you have anything you want to request, leave a comment below. I've got a bunch of comics. You know, if I don't have it, I might be able to get it, depending, of course, on price and availability. But no, first we're going to do Uncanny X-Men number 276. So, May of 1991. That's a pretty good cover. We're not bothering with background on this one. That's okay. You don't have to every time. And it's a striking enough image, I guess, that we can forego it. I think at the time I did not know who Professor Xavier was. It's just like, man, it's really upsetting that Wolverine killed this guy, eh? And again, barely knowing who Wolverine was. So let's get into it here. This is, of course, written by Chris Claremont, penciled by Jim Lee, inked by Scott Williams. So we're going to kick things off with a big splash page with Gambit and Jubilee. So if we recall from the end of last issue, the X-Men had defeated Deathbird and were celebrating Lilandra's undisputed coronation. After which, Jubilee stumbled upon the Professor X, mind-wiping Gladiator and talking like a supervillain. So, Gambit snuck up behind her here. They're just going to watch for a bit and see what's going on. Pretty good opening panel here. Not too difficult, not too exciting, but it does get you involved right away. And you can never go wrong with an opening splash. Followed by almost a double splash. There seems like a bit of a setting error here. I think this got set a bit too high. But still a pretty wild double spread. So, Gladiator is completely under Xavier's control now. And he's going to rip out Deathbird's wings, which is pretty nasty. A bit nastier than you would expect of Claremonty X-Men. But yeah, pretty good, making them look absolutely massive. I mean, that seems to be the point a lot of the time. Just make the figures look as big as you can. And you can do a lot worse than having them take up the whole page and then setting the camera right at ground level. So now Gladiator is going to kill Deathbird at Xavier's request. So I think we can be pretty sure at this point that Xavier is in fact a bad guy. He's not bluffing. At which point Gambit decides he's heard enough. Gonna jump in there and mix it up a bit. And we get a little bit of description about what exactly Gambit does here. Terran charges the objects he throws with so much kinetic energy they explode against whatever they hit, which is some good old school comic stuff. You see how much like dialogue is going on here in the middle of this fight. And I don't mind it. I'll simply use my telepathy to seize these interlopers' minds as I did yours. By the abyss, Gambit's thoughts like Quicksilver, as hard to grab hold of as the man himself. It's like if you did this in a modern comic, it would look so out of place, because all you have time to do is say your prayers. And Deathbird's awake enough to knock Xavier and Gladiator over here. And nice movement with the incoming blast that way and then the slash that way. It does kind of... Yeah, otherwise, if you did it both the same way, it would be a little confusing and kind of take away from the impact. And Jubilee jumps in and is not able to do much of anything. I guess Jubilee kind of fills the Shadowcat role now that Shadowcat's not here, or, you know, she's older, that kind of stuff. Where you need somebody who's kind of fish out of watery and inexperienced. So, she can get in trouble, or she can get the X-Men in trouble and occasionally get them out of it. Not too often, but every once in a while. And this is just going to be action shot after action shot for a little bit here. which makes me wonder if maybe Jim's doing the plots again. They kind of attack Gladiator at different angles, and then wrap the cape around Xavier's head. All right. Start running, but Gladiator throws Deathbird at them and gouges a gigantic hole in the wall, behind which is Lila Cheney for a little bit of Deus Ex Machina. But again, good shot here with the gigantic figures just doing their action thing. Okay, so now we're going to get Gambit jumping away from some machine gun fire here. Pretty nice movement with the leap over here. And Lila Cheney teleports away with Deathbird. She doesn't want to, but Deathbird insists. So Jubilee and Gambit are stuck here now. Jubilee throws her fireworks or whatever, and Gambit throws the supercharged rocks here at the fireworks to see what happens, basically. And apparently what happens is a gigantic explosion, which would be a useful tactic going forward, but I don't know if I ever saw it again. I don't think so. I didn't read too much X-Men after this, maybe like a year or so. So the X-Men show up at the scene, the remaining X-Men anyway, and Gladiator's helping Xavier to his feet. Lila Cheney and Deathbird have teleported away, of course, but Gambit and Jubilee are also missing. And given what we know about Xavier now, that doesn't exactly bode too well. And Xavier says he's going to scan for their thoughts, and that if he finds them, he'll let them know. Meanwhile, Wolverine finds something, and we get a classic Jim Lee leap here, leading to Shabam. Yeah, it's a pretty good shot. I got that Art Adams arm hair and everything. Colorist didn't exactly help out too much here by just coloring Wolverine and Xavier yellow. That's a little strange. And this is a bit of an odd looking face for Jim Lee, actually, looking at it. Just a little bit. But yeah, that's a memorable panel. I kind of wish I'd known exactly what the deal was back when I read it, because again, I didn't know who Xavier was. But still, you know that Wolverine's supposed to be a good guy and he just killed somebody in cold blood, right? Who everybody seems to think is a good guy. And everybody's just in shock here, except for Psylocke, who hits Wolverine with the psychic knife and incapacitates them. And we've seen, of course, that Psylocke got dragged off at the end of the last issue by somebody with no pants. So she may not be in the best mind frame at the moment. And the X-Men aren't sure what to do, aside from Psylocke. So they're just kind of standing there stunned while Lilandra orders her guards to seize them. But then they get that light, some kind of energy flare. Gotta love old school description. And Lila Cheney and Deathbird teleport back in with some gigantic guns that they got from somewhere. Probably from Jim Lee's anime collection. And they're able to shoot the place up, teleport the X-Men out, and escape. Again, there's another one of those anchor images. This is one of those pages that you want to put up in your house. So meantime, the Chancellor is going to sort of hypnotize Lilandra here. Psylocke's going to wipe her memory so that she doesn't remember Charles being killed and dispose of the body. And Corsair gets to decide what to do with the prisoners. Now we get some why did you bother backgrounds. Just giant hatching. You might as well just leave it blank at that point. You did here. You pretty much did here. Why don't you just do something similar to this? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Maybe he gets yelled at if he does too many consecutive panels with no background at all. All right, so we find ourselves on the planet Indir, perhaps. Or, I don't know. I don't know what you do with an exclamation point in the middle of a word. Maybe it's P, Indir. That must be it. And this was Deathbird's suggestion for where to take the X-Men. And it turns out, let's just say P has been wiped out by the Shi'ar Empire. And that's everybody on the planet. And this is the handiwork of Xavier, she says. And apparently this is not the only world. There are several systems that have been wiped out just the same, and they're all attributed to Deathbird. And Forge has a minor breakdown here. Nice shot. Again, Jim seems to like these, being able to do these designs. And I gotta say, they look pretty good. And Storm tries to kind of snap him out of it, because they're going to need him to make them some techie weapons and stuff if they're going to take on the Shi'ar. Or Shi'ar. I suppose Shi'ar is better. And at this point, Deathbird explains that it's all down to Xavier and Lilandra, who are wiping out planets and blaming Deathbird. And Storm actually backs her up here, because she explains that what Wolverine found was actually Jubilee's earring just before he killed Xavier. And Xavier, of course, backed up Gladiator when he said that Gambit and Jubilee weren't around. So the X-Men know that Professor Xavier, at least that Professor Xavier, was a doppelganger or evil or something. Mind-controlled, maybe. Who knows? There's a lot of options at this point. And a good gigantic shot of Deathbird. That's tough, particularly with a woman's face. Because you got to be careful, of course, about where you put the extra lines. You got to put extra lines. You can't just put a gigantic face with no lines. So, gives her a little bit of underlighting, because that gives you something. And it's a little easier with Deathbird, because Deathbird's a villain. We've seen him go hard on the face lines on her before. But, you know, on a close-up, she's still got to look kind of pretty, because that's how it works. And, yeah, no, very good job. I would have a lot of difficulty with that. That's impressive. And I know it doesn't look like it would be. But no, I'm impressed, personally. And even keeping her in proportion, like keeping all of her features in proportion at that size, that's got to be pretty difficult. But anyway, Starjammers teleport in. They've been able to track a biotag inserted into Deathbird's blood. So, they've been able to track her to the planet, but that's as close as they can really guarantee she is. They're a little curious why she would have come here, because it's not exactly like they left her allies. They reveal here that it was the Starjammers personally who wiped out the planet. And so I guess this is the tech that Forge created for them to leave the planet again. Only in the middle of it, Deathbird experiences a telepathic episode. Something is invading her mind. She grabs Lila Cheney again and tells her to teleport her to a place real quick. Which, I mean, I guess you have to get Lila Cheney out of there every once in a while. Because you can't have somebody who can just teleport hanging around all the time. Or like, you know, the X-Men would never lose anything. It's like you got to wonder how the X-Men ever lose a battle. Particularly when they've got someone like Jean Grey, who's supposed to be a monster telekinetic. Which, you know, how does anybody ever do anything against her then? All she got to do is squeeze your carotid shut for like a few seconds. And boof, you're dead. You know? Or just like crush you. Like, you know, it's not like you need extra force. She's supposed to be like an Omega level mutant or something, right? She's snuffed out suns. There is no reason for Jean Grey to ever lose a fight of any kind. Which is why I guess they have to, you know, bring her back to life. Oh, and she's just regular Jean Grey with telepathy, but not much telekinesis. Or other way around. A little bit of telekinesis, no telepathy. And then, oh, but the Phoenix power is awakening within her. And she's super powerful, but she might be getting evil. Oh, we better be careful. And she has to leave. And she died again. Shit. Because you can't have a full power Jean Grey hanging around too long. That's just stupid. So, without Lila Cheney, Forge has to figure out, like, he knows how to pilot the thing, he built it, but he gets to figure out how to attack the Starjammer ship all on his own. because Storm and Banshee are supposed to run interference. I don't remember that bit at all. I don't remember any of this. It's interesting. I remember this, where Jubilee is now brought to a chamber of some kind, and Jubilee, and it looks like everybody's naked, and they're pulled off by like a techno tentacle thing. Again, different kind of comic now. You gotta watch that shit. And Lilandra is still hypnotized, and the Chancellor is the one running the show here. And he reverts back to his original form, which looks Skrull-like. They don't say Skrull, but I assume it is. The only one really talking at this point is Jubilee. She wouldn't know what a Skrull is, I don't think. She does point out that the original Psylocke and the Imperial Guard Oracle and another Professor Xavier are all bound up in this techno mess, along with her and Logan. And I would assume Gambit's in there somewhere too. And the probably Skrull, he's going to take Xavier's form again. This is the thing, it doesn't feel exactly like Skrulls because I feel like they can shape change at will without it being a big hullabaloo. But this is much more of a process. So because he's not keyed to Xavier, or Xavier's not keyed to him, it's much more painful than the last Xavier, his transformation. But he is able to complete the transformation and imprints himself on Lilandra so that nobody else will be recognized by her, including the original Xavier. But Xavier, down here covered in technomuck, is far from beaten. And next, revelations and reunions galore, not to mention the odd Rousing Rescuer 3 and Tag Who's It. Alright. I mean, the last one was Hopscotch, right? Is that what this one ended up being called? I'm guessing not. Double Death. Alright. And that is going to do it for Uncanny X-Men number 276. Not too bad. It's kind of a tweener issue. We get our big fight in between Gambit and Gladiator and Deathbird and Xavier and Jubilee, all that stuff. So that's something. That goes on for a few pages. And we got that awesome shot there. Jubilee seems to like to front load his awesome shots. He likes doing the Eric Larson splash, double splash. And I don't blame him. It's effective. I wonder if that's something that they were taught. But like you look back at Uncanny X-Men 268, start with the classic splash of Captain America. That probably ended up on a whole shit ton of t-shirts. And not a full double splash, but a spread that does spread over both pages. 269 doesn't really have a splash page opening, but again, it does have that double splash second page with a gigantic naked rogue. So that's 269 of Uncanny X-Men, in case you were wondering. 270 in the Extinction Agenda. Nothing there. But we do get the double splash again for pages 2 and 3. Those figures look gigantic. This is Child Storm. She briefly got formed back into a preteen, I think it was. 271. Kind of set the tone here. Not double splashes, but there are a lot of gigantic panels, and these are memorable pages as well. I think everybody probably remembers this stuff if you were reading at the time. Oh yeah, just massive, massive panels. And then 272. Not much on the first page, but yeah, we get a bunch on the second page. That is a lot of crap. Now, you want to impress. You know, knock their socks off. Who can blame you? And 273 is, of course, by different artists, but we'll just check and see if they did the same thing. Why not? Got a splash by Wills and a big double splash. So, yeah, it would Seemed to me like this was something that was taught at the time. And I know Rob liked to do that occasionally too. He did that in some of his X-Force books. So it was something that was going around at the time. And you can't really argue with the effectiveness. I'm planning on doing something similar in Blood Force number 3. So that's going to do it for this one. Not a bad issue. Not really in the heat of the action kind of... It feels like we're still setting things up. Really. But this is still chapter 3 of the 4-part series. But yeah, it was just at this point that we really confirmed that Xavier was evil, even. And next issue, they're going to have to resolve it all. So that'll be interesting. I wonder if that'll feel rushed. I think it does a little bit. That's okay, though. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks very much for watching. If you like this video, please hit like, hit subscribe, hit the notifications. Go follow me on Twitter. More importantly, go subscribe on Patreon. That's where all these videos go before they make it to YouTube, usually a week or so in advance. That's also where all the Blood Force pages go, as well as all of the completed Blood Force comics. There's a couple of those now. And also that you'll find behind-the-scenes stuff and some Patreon exclusives. As well, if you go over to my Instagram, commissions are now open. And if you've got an idea for what the next revisit should be, leave a comment below. I have a tendency to just kind of go in sequence and go, yes, we should do every Image comic chronologically, and then decide where to go from there. So, yeah, if you'd like a detour, I'm sure you probably might. Just leave a comment below. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.